Welcome to this week's edition of Outdoors Online, a weekly webcast produced by the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. I'm your host, Tom Jensen. Deer lottery applications are available. People are busy working out their strategies to give them the best chances of being drawn this year. My guest is Jeb Williams. Jeb is, of course, the Wildlife Division Chief at Game and Fish. We're going to talk about the deer lottery this year. Jeb, sure most people know by now, we're only issuing the fewest licenses since 1978.
Yeah, no doubt that number caught some people's attention, as did last year's, Tom, and that's been unfortunately the trend we've seen since 2007, where license numbers have been
What are the numbers specifically?
Just over 43,000, 43,275 licenses will be allocated this year.
You know, it seems like we see more deer on the landscape as we drive down the road and things, at least compared to the last couple of years. Why so few licenses?
Well, in the majority of our units, Tom, our harvest rates are still down. We're much below our management objectives in the majority units in the state, and people would like to see more deer on the landscape, and so we're continuing to cut those licenses in an attempt to have more deer in future years on the landscape. Now, what more deer will look like in some units is debatable, but as of right now, we're still trying to increase the population of the deer herds in most of those units.
We're kind of in rebuilding mode, if you want to call it that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've gone through a real massive change over a 10-year period of time. I mean, it was a very, not even 10 years ago, where the department issued a record number of deer licenses for North Dakota. And I think a good reminder to put out to people on that, Tom, is that the years that the Game and Fish Department has issued more than 100,000 deer licenses, it's much more of the exception rather than has been the rule over the years in the years of deer management in North Dakota. So, you know, years of under 100,000 licenses, historically speaking, are much more of a normal practice in a prairie state like North Dakota.
How long does it generally take the herd to replenish itself, weather permitting?
Yeah, I mean, that obviously you bring up a good point there, is that there's some factors associated with that, and one of them being the obvious thing in North Dakota: weather does play a role. There's no doubt about that. But anytime we're talking about any species of wildlife, you're talking about habitat. Habitat drives those critters, drives the population, whether that population be high or low. And there's no doubt that weather can play a role in that, as far as some years maybe artificially helping populations. But again, if you don't have that good habitat base, over time you're not going to have those species numbers. And so we've just seen a big landscape change in a lot of units compared to 10 years ago. That simply are not going to be holding the same deer numbers, and not capable of holding the same deer numbers as they once did.
Obviously, then, there are units that took a bigger hit than others as far as licenses go.
Correct. Similar to last year, Tom, too, the eastern part of the state is the area that the majority of the reductions have come from. That's been the area that has been struggling the most. Flipping that a little bit, in the southwest part of the state, that's where we actually still have a few units that are above management objectives. But the eastern part of the state has been the area of concern. That's been where a majority of the habitat loss has taken place, and of course they have received a little longer and a little extra special winter weather, a couple years ago, that some of the other parts of the state maybe did not receive.
Jeb, let me ask you this. We are in the 4th or 5th year of issuing no mule deer doe tags at all. In the Badlands units, they've responded well. I read that populations are up 25–30% in some areas. Why don't we do that with whitetail? Yeah,
that's a really fair question, one that we've been receiving a lot. And I think that the pretty simplistic answer is that, we feel in the western part of the state that the habitat hasn't drastically changed. Now, we know that the oil and gas development there has changed the landscape some, and we currently have a study ongoing to look at the fragmentation that's taken place and to see what kind of impact that has on mule deer. But generally speaking, the habitat, the Badlands topography, the grasslands out there, those have stayed the same. And so we feel that there is more room to carry more mule deer on the landscape in the Badlands than what they currently are. So by doing that, you're saying that when we completely have shut down the mule deer doe season, we have an expectation and believe that that landscape can hold more. Plus, mule deer's ability to respond reproductively is is not as much as a whitetail. Whitetails can respond reproductively quite a bit better than mule deer can.
With so few tags available, Jeb, there are hunters out there that actually they're used to being drawn every year for a buck tag. They could be facing not being drawn for anything this year. Are there things that they can do to get drawn, to change their odds?
You know, we do know that people are very choosy about their units that they like to go in. I mean, it's a family-orientated thing. Number one, it's where Grandpa's farm is, or their own farm, or you know, Uncle's farm, friend's farm, that type of thing. We know that people generally maybe like to go home to those specific spots, and that's important. That's a special thing for people, and I can relate to that. But one of the things that people can do is if they aren't dead set on a specific unit, there are some units that people can shop around a little bit, because there are some opportunities in different units out there that still are pretty good draw odds. Or if somebody is a little more choosy about wanting to stay in that unit, but they just want a deer hunt, applying for that antlerless tag, of course, is going to be your best bet to participate in the deer gun season. All right,
lottery apps are available now. When is the deadline, and when can people expect to hear the results?
The deadline is June 3rd. And so people, of course, need to get those applications in, preferably online, but paper applications are available now, and then lottery results will probably be available towards the end of July.
All right, Jeb, thanks.
Thank you, Tom.
There are a number of ways you can apply for one of those 43,275 available licenses in the 2015 Deer Lottery. The simplest is online. Log on to the Game and Fish website at gf.nd.gov and follow the links to the lottery application. Fill it out properly and pay the fee with a credit card. You can also fill out the old school paper application that are available at licensed vendors and sporting goods stores across the state, or you can apply over the phone by calling 1-800-406-6409. But remember, you must have your application submitted by the deadline Wednesday, June 3rd. For Jeb Williams and the rest of the staff here at North Dakota Game and Fish, thanks for joining us for Outdoors Online. We'll see you again next week.